World War I. World War I has a huge amount of topics that would make great History Day choices. So first, let's start with the use of poison gas. For those interested in weapons, the use of poison gas in World War I would be a great History Day topic. By the end of 1914, the Western Front was in a stalemate which would last for 3.5 years. Trench warfare as a technique was not decisive. In an attempt to find some advantage, French and Germans began to use chemical weapons that were designed to injure and irritate, not kill. By April of 1915, chemical gases would turn deadly, with the German introduction of chlorine gas at the Battle of Ypres. In response to the poison gas, the French fled. Later, the British and French would introduce their own poison gases. In response, all armies created protective gas masks with respirators for breathing and prepared with drills. While psychologically terrifying, poison gas was unable to break the trench lines. However, different kinds of gas were introduced, like phosphine and mustard. Following the war, the use of poison gas was outlawed under the Geneva Protocol. The second topic I'd like to look at is the Hello Girls in communication in the battlefield. When General Pershing arrived in France, he discovered that communication systems were old-fashioned. Using new technology surrounding the telephone, Pershing envisioned using telephone operators and lines to help connect command with the Western Front. Advertisements asked women to do their part in the war effort. Applicants needed to be able to speak both French and English, and more than 7,000 applied, but only 450 were accepted. The Signal Corps Female Telephone Operators Unit was created in 1917 and training began at Fort Franklin. Although they operated under the Army, they were considered civilians because females were not technically allowed, only males, in the Army. They arrived in Europe to face their new responsibilities on the front lines. In France, they served in 75 different locations, and in England they served in London, Southampton, and Winchester. They served in war zones. Pershing credited them with improving communications and helping the American Expeditionary Force to success. The third topic I'd like to look at is the Harlem Hellfighters. They would make a great History Day topic, and you remember them from class. The Harlem Hellfighters proved their worth, despite discrimination being undervalued. They arrived in France to discover themselves assigned to essential duties, not combat. Under pressure from the French, Pershing assigned the Harlem Hellfighters to the French, who had no such qualms about using the African-American soldiers. They excelled in their new combat responsibilities. The unit spent 191 days in combat, more than any other American unit, and they played a critical role at the Battle of Chateau Thierry and Bellewood. The French recognized their contributions and awarded 171 different Croix de Guerre medals to the Harlem Hellfighters. News of their exploits reached the U.S., and they returned to a hero's parade. Finally, I want to take a look at the Food Administration. Another great topic that would be to look at how the Food Administration helped to conserve food, produce more food, and manage to feed the troops and allies in Europe. Herbert Hoover employed propaganda to advertise programs that helped Americans gain new responsibilities on the home front in regards to food and how they could contribute to the war effort with that. Americans had Wheatless Wednesdays and Meatless Mondays. Americans planted victory gardens to increase production of food. The wartime home effort was so successful that it increased production by 25%, and increased exports to the Allies by 2/3. Its success led other agencies copying it, and similar formats being followed in World War II. There are many other great topics in World War I, including propaganda and the Treaty of Versailles. Don't hesitate to ask questions of your history teacher.